Okay, your intro's too long. You know how we do an intro? You ready?
Yeah.
Hey guys. Okay, let's get into it today. See, there you go. That's like a good intro. But the only way you get a good intro is if you wear your hat. Because if you don't wear your hat, then it's all
I'm not wearing
vain.
the hat.
You have to wear the hat.
I'm not wearing the hat.
You said you're gonna get a hat you like. You didn't have time this week to get a hat.
No, I didn't have time.
Wow, that seems to be the same thing every single week. So there's no time there to buy a hat. You look like a cowboy today. Jungle Jim, the cowboy of the Wild Wild West.
I hate this hat.
You tell me every time. I think, you know what?
I hate this hat.
Jim, I think that eventually you're going to start to love it.
No.
I think slowly you will.
Guys that look like they're at a business trip don't wear hats like this and call it In the Jungle. That's the contradiction of terms here.
The contradiction of
This
terms.
is the problem. It's a contradiction of terms.
Oh, with the hat.
This is In the Jungle with Jungle Jim Hunter, and I think we should just get at it because there was so much that I thought about after last week's talking about doubt and how I said you've got to get rid of it, or you've got to work with it, or you've got to have a first response that teaches it to get in the caboose instead of being in the engine trying to tell you where to go. But I realized something.
What'd you realize?
There are many, many things associated with doubt.
What do you mean things?
I'll explain in a second.
Ideas,
Let me take my hat off.
Okay. Well, the hat's coming up. Hey, we got a little farther this time.
Yes,
we got
a little bit further. We got a little bit further. Cole is beyond help, but we're working on it.
Hey, my legs hurt today. All right.
I know,
Walking
and I'm
down the stairs, I was crying because
And you know what?
I was working hard.
You don't know how much joy that brings me, because when my athletes say, my legs hurt, my arms hurt, I go, finally, you reached a level where you're working. I want to get back to what I was saying before.
Sure.
There are some issues when it comes to our emotions that never go away, and doubt is one of them.
Interesting.
This may sound like I'm backtracking, but I'm not. What I'm trying to do is to get you to understand that any of the aspects that you never get rid of. Now, let me give you a couple more examples so you understand. We never get rid of doubt.
Like me, I'll never get rid of doubt.
No one does. No one does. We never get rid of fear. It's always with us. It always shows up. And if you learn what I'm trying to teach you, you will understand that it's actually good for you. Because you see, when you get into the mode of doubt, it immediately tells you something that you need to deal with. When doubt comes around, when fear comes around, when comparing yourself comes around, these are all parts of the emotions that associate with doubt. When they come around, they're there to teach you something that you need to know, that you need to deal with. And because you need to deal with it, if you learn how to put it in the caboose, as I say, in other words, let's go back to the train illustration. You have the engine that drives you. You have the passengers, the cargo train. It's there.
Yeah.
And you have these things that you have to take with you.
Right.
For part of what you do. You are good on a computer. You carry computer stuff.
I carry it every time I show
All
up here.
the time.
I walk in with a computer, and
Exactly.
it's very heavy.
And that's part of the tools. And so those
Right.
are the passengers that go with you on the trip. But there's the caboose that gets a free ride, because there are things that just come along that come with you. And I tried to explain last time, you're actually not climbing a mountain. You're building the mountain of your life. And as you build it, you handle those areas where there's things that can tear you down or break you down or take you apart or pull you apart. And doubt is a big one, because it shows up all the time. We see somebody and we immediately compare ourselves and we go, do I look like that? Or especially athletes, especially people who are self-conscious. They immediately compare. But it's good for you to know what doubt is. And I want to kind of review so that those that are listening to this will understand what we're talking about. Doubt is a word that has D-O at the beginning, U in the middle, and then BT.
Right.
And I told you last time that I was taught that at a very young age, that doubt is do, you, what you put in you through what you do is who you're becoming.
Okay.
It's how you're developing. It's what you're growing into. And when doubt comes, BT is there between two things.
Okay, wait, we have to break down this word again. So you have D-O-U-B-T.
Yes.
D-O is do, U is yourself in the middle.
Yeah.
And then BT is at the end.
U is see the U as a cup. And what you put in that cup is who you're becoming. It's what grows out of you.
Right.
A lot of times when I'm working with athletes, they'll say, I'm standing at the start and I'm ready to go, or I'm ready to play the game and I'm sitting on the bench, or I'm waiting on the sidelines and it's my turn to go in. Mm-hmm. And doubt shows up and I all of a sudden, out of me comes, oh, you can't do that. Or that guy's bigger than you. Or that guy, he looks faster than you.
Right.
Do you think you can catch him? Do you think you can track him down? And all of these things come. And what you train yourself to do with that is important, because DOU and then BT is the end of the word, is that puts you between two things. When we looked up the definition of doubt, it's Latin, it was Greek, it came through the French and into the English, and it means to waver, to hesitate. You choose between two things.
To doubt is to choose between two things.
Should I do this? Should I do that?
Right.
Can I do this? Can I do that? I don't know. What can I do? And that creates unbelief in us. And when it creates unbelief in us and we carry it on for too long, we all of a sudden become unfaithful. And what do I mean by that? We don't do what we know we should do.
So, okay, hold on. So what you're trying to say is that doubt always shows up, but you have to train yourself on what you're going to do with that doubt. And if you never train yourself how to work with doubt, it's always going to consume you.
It's always going to win. And you just put it in the engine.
Right.
And now you're in the caboose.
Right. And it's driving you.
And it's driving you where you want to go.
You can't win if doubt's driving.
You can't get a handle on it. You can't do it. Because doubt comes and you end up taking that first step of running away from a challenge, or it finally leaves you in such an undecided state that this weak, unarmed enemy, doubt, rules the roost. It rules what's going on. And doubt dogs everyone, but has no bite when we stop feeding it.
So it's barking, but it's just it's Fugazi, it's a wisp.
That's what you've got to realize, but you have to stop feeding it.
Oh, right.
Because he's sitting there waiting for you to feed it. He wants you to respond. He wants you to give in. You're asking yourself and your body and what you think based on your experience and on your knowledge, it's saying, you tried this once. You can't do it. Do you think you can do this? The more you feed that, the more it grows. And so what I'm trying to get you to have a focus on is being able to say, I'm not putting that in you anymore. I'm not putting that in the cup anymore. I'm not going to feed that anymore. What I wanted you to have as a catchphrase today to understand this is a statement that I was taught when I was very young, and I was trying to understand this, how you deal with doubt. I remember my mom saying to me, you'll be tomorrow what you are today, only more so. So if you feed doubt today, then tomorrow you're more of that.
You'll be tomorrow
what you are today, only more so, because it grows. And because it grows in you, it's constantly starving and asking for more. It's like what you do with a child when you give it ice cream for the first time. And then you try to go back to peas or asparagus or carrots.
Not happening.
Not happening now.
Throwing those peas across the room.
I'm spitting them out.
Yeah.
I'm just going to spit them across the room or spit them back in your face, because I like that other stuff. I don't know what it is, but I like that other stuff.
Yep.
Well, we're like that. We like the other stuff. You think about it. You know you have something you need to do, but you come home and you make yourself something to drink. You might have a cup of coffee, a tall glass of water, and the next thing you know, you sit down.
And then you edit the next Jungle podcast.
No, and then the remote is right there, and you pick up the remote.
Oh, this is not my life. Okay, sorry.
Not your life. You're not like this.
I'm special.
And you turn the TV on, and next thing you know, well, I just watch a half hour.
Right.
I should go work out. Just laugh a little bit. Come on, I've earned this. I worked hard today.
Right.
You can't afford to do that, because you'll be tomorrow what you are today, only more so. I did not live with 168 other racers that were in the first race I was in when I made it onto the Ski Meisters ski team and started to become a racer. But those other 168 never went to the Olympics, never went to the national championships, never went anywhere, because they fed something else. And that doesn't mean that they failed. It just means over time.
Yeah, they were who they set out to be every
Exactly.
day. Yeah.
I find most of those people that I used to run into that I knew when I started racing, I went to junior high school with and I went to high school with, and I would see them later in life, and they would always say the same thing. They would say, I didn't have what you had. And I go, I don't have anything that you don't have. Oh yeah, you're way different. You're way different than me. And I go, what are you talking about? You had the same choices. Remember we talked about last time? You have a life, you have time, you have choices, you have the ability to give the very best of you, and in that you create the community you live in. And because you live in that community, you develop who you are. You know, here's what's amazing. I've had thousands of kids and parents and people in business that I've worked with. But when they would come to me and say, can you help me? I heard you speak. I heard what you said. I heard what you do from somebody else. Can you help me? I would say to them, well, when you come, bring your plan. How many do you think had a plan? What percentage?
10%.
0.1. I had one
1%.
out of 1,016 athletes that came with a plan. And I said, okay, I asked you for a plan. Okay. Did you bring your resume of performance? This is what I accomplished. Did you bring your resume of failure? What's that? I didn't understand what that was. And I told you what it was. Why? Because I want to know what they've overcome. I want to know which way they're growing. You see, if you want to treat yourself as if you don't have a resume of failure, that everything is just good, you're just fooling yourself. I would ask them if they have heroes. My favorite so-and-so, my favorite this, my favorite that. I said, how many books do you have on them? How many times have you read about them? None. I've watched them perform on TV.
Yeah.
And when everybody does that, have you ever studied them? Do you know why they did what they did? Do you know what made them great? We need to understand this, Cole, that we go to school, and it's valuable that we go to school, and it's key. It's very important that we get an education. But we're only given the tools to work in life. We learn how to read and write.
Right.
We learn how to do math. We learn history. But at no point do we stop and say, okay, how do I grow here? How do I take all of this? Now, they expect you to do that.
To go into a field and to become the best. And
Exactly.
Right.
Why would you wait until you finish high school to do that? Why not get the jump on everybody else and start before you go to school? See, I don't know if you can grasp this, Cole, but we read the textbooks for the following year in the summertime in July and August before we went to school, so we knew what we were going to do. And we found school exciting and thrilling because we knew what was coming.
And
And we already knew something about it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is cool. This is good. I can't wait for this.
We didn't go to school going, wonder what we're doing today.
Oh, this is too hard. I don't understand.
I don't even understand this.
I don't remember what
teacher
math class
doesn't
was about.
teach. The teacher just talks.
Right.
No, here, my turn. I got the answer.
Right.
Jim, could you put your hand down?
Yeah.
Just be quiet. It's so important that we understand that what we feed is how we grow. And when we feed doubts, when we feed fears, when we feed comparison, we're actually helping ourselves to a feast that will never take us anywhere.
We're going backwards.
We're going away from where we want to go.
You're not becoming the person.
And you
wanna
don't
be.
get a second chance. I don't get a second chance at life. I get one. You get one. We all get one. So I would ask you to ask yourself today, what have you learned that convinced you that you could overcome doubt? What do you do when you doubt? Where do you go when you doubt? Who do you go and talk to when you doubt?
What's your response to doubt, basically?
Exactly.
Yeah. Is
And
it just
same with fear. Same with comparison.
Is it just a wallow and be sad and hide away, or like what do you do with
And
doubt?
and what do the majority of people do? They repeat the same stuff. And if they find a listening ear, they got to tell the whole story. And you can flip that in a second by saying, when I doubt, I do this. And this is what I want to talk about today is doubt becomes your best friend. It becomes something that can help you move forward and get you going so that as you grow and develop, it makes you more proficient and equipped and mature to handle whatever comes next. And the better you get at it, the better you become. It's no different than if I said to you, well, you want to do what? Oh, you want to bench press 225? Well, why don't I come to the gym with you and work with you for the next 3 weeks? We will go 3 days a week. We'll go 5 days a week, whatever you want to do. We'll go every day. And I'm going to personally coach you every move as you do it. And I'm going to be there to make sure that when I see doubt in your eyes, because I'll see it.
You're going to beat it up.
And I'll see it before you do.
You're going to strangle it.
I will tell doubt where to go so that you get to a place where you can tell doubt where to go. When you see something and it makes you doubt, when you say something, you suddenly realize that on your lips is doubt.
Right. When it shows up.
When it shows up. And then when you react to it in such a way that you do something that even enhances it, you lose.
Right. Like, oh, no, I'll go last kind of thing, you know? Like if you have doubt about a race or something and you want, like, you mean like that? Like what your reaction to?
Of course, I search and I read books. I've got 6,000
Jim,
books in here.
You have a lot of books in here.
There's 6,000 books in
There's
this
still a bunch on the floor and you have like a dozen bookshelves. I don't know why they've been there for a few months, but you know what?
I need more bookshelves
Right, of
because I
course.
got to put the rest up. because I'm constantly reading. I
Right.
read 3 books this week, and I'm
lot of
constantly studying. This week, I wanted to read a book about what does everybody doubt? And I found out that you can go back thousands of years, and the top 10 list is exactly the same as it was 2,000 years ago.
Right.
Fear of failure, imposter syndrome. In other words, what if they find out that I really don't know what I'm doing? What if they find out that I really, in my case, never had a ski lesson? I'm a ski racer. That one used to hang over my head all the time. I used to go,
Never had a ski lesson.
never had a lesson. Nobody ever taught me how
Don't
to
tell
ski.
anyone. They're gonna think bad of
Right?
me.
We've had that around for 2,000 years. Low confidence. I don't know any athletes that I've had except one, the one that had a plan, that didn't have low confidence.
Funny how that works. Hey,
It's funny.
Funny.
Anxiety. They would hear something. Somebody would say something. I remembered when I first went on the World Cup circuit, I heard all these guys around me. And I was glad I didn't speak fluent German and French and Italian at that time. But I found out later as I learned the language what they were doing. A guy that would speak German on the French team or on the Italian team would say something, and he would say it within earshot of the German team and
Right.
the Austrian team who spoke German, and they would say something like, "Oh, it's really icy in gate 14."
Oh, I see.
And all they were doing was planting doubt in their competitors' eyes and ears because, oh, that guy is no good on ice. It's icy in gate 14.
Gonna poke his buttons.
And all of a sudden, all he's focused on is gate 14. I sidestepped the course. I don't remember that. What did I miss? Oh, no. And now he's feeding it. He's just feeding it.
Right. He's getting
Right?
worried and concerned, and he's thinking about gate 14.
But guess what? Anxiety's been around for thousands of years. Comparing yourself with others is number 5. You know, the list 2,000 years ago is the same as the list today.
Of doubt.
It hasn't changed,
Yeah.
right? I feel like I'm not worthy. I'm worthless. I'm always making comparisons. Am I as good as they are? Are they as good as we are? When they get a new challenge, what do you hear people say when somebody gets a new challenge? They go, well, I don't know if I can do that. I mean, it's instant. I have experience, but I failed. I'm a failure at that. I don't know if I want to go down that road. And then the classics, I can't, I don't, I will never. You know, I can't, I don't, I will never. None of these will ever go away. They will always stay with you.
The thoughts.
They'll show up when you least expect them, and they will show up at any time and sneak in under the closed door of doubt to take a shot at you without ever having arms and a fist to throw a punch. And because they can do that, and because they will do it, you can see what can happen to somebody. And I want to give you a story that I read when I was young, and I understood it right away. Pole vault was part of the Olympics in the Summer Olympics.
Pole vaulting, like with
Pole
the big
vaulting.
pole, and then you go over the
You go over the
bar in the air.
giant
Yeah.
high jump.
Right.
That's what I call it, giant high jump. And back then, the poles that you used for pole vaulting were made out of bamboo.
Right.
And they were so heavy that somebody said, we got to do something. So they invented the aluminum pole. And the aluminum pole was like 50 times lighter than the bamboo pole.
Right.
Right? And so all of a sudden, the height started going up and they could go higher.
because it was lighter. Yeah.
It was lighter and you could carry the pole, you could run faster, boom, place it, pull with all your might. But you had to go from a straight fulcrum, right? You're going like this and it's straight up.
Yeah.
So you were limited how far you could go, right? Well, in 1968 at the 68 Olympics, the world champion was an American pole vaulter named Bob Beamon. And Bob Beamon was the best in the world. But somebody walked up to him a month before the Olympics and said, I have a fiberglass pole. Well, how do you jump with a fiberglass pole? When you jump and you hang on to it, it bends. And then as you pull through with your hips and kick your legs up, the
Bends
pole
back.
snaps up
And it pushes you
and
higher.
it throws you
Yeah.
higher. So he started practicing and he figured it out and he had it figured out. But when he got to the Olympics, he didn't want to take it out of his bag. He was going, I'll be the only guy here.
With the fiberglass.
And then he started going, I wonder if it's legal. I wonder if it's in the rules. I wonder if there's any rules about this.
Right.
And he went through this whole agony and completely failed and not only couldn't win the gold medal, but didn't perform well all the way up because he was in this state
Of doubt.
of doubt that he had fed so much that he couldn't do it. And, you know, he wrote in his book, doubt is a terrible thing if you feed it and let it take you where it wants to go.
Right.
And so what I'm trying to get you to see, what you say, and what you do, and what your first response is, reveals the direction you're going. It reveals the direction that you're moving. And as I've said before, we always move in the direction of current dominant thought.
Right. And if the current dominant thought is doubt, then
Ask yourself, what do you see? What do you say? What do you do? And is it a do or is it a doubt? As I keep referring to my farm history,
Farmer Boy Jim.
the seed you are growing, you're hoeing, and finally showing. And that's what's taking you where to go. So what are the doubt applications? How do we know this? The first time we know doubt shows up is we become defensive.
You're gonna do something, and then your defenses go up, and you're like, "Oh, whoa!
You're gonna say, well, I really,
Shouldn't jump off the plane."
I didn't mean literally,
I
right?
wanted to pretend.
We get defensive,
Right.
right? And that moves us towards a destination away from where we want to go. And it has everything to do with whoever said it. In other words, the authority figure that said it determines how much value we give it.
The authority figure. Okay, so you mean like if it's a sibling or if it's like a
friend?
political leader, kind of.
Yeah.
Right.
If it's a coach,
Or someone you look up to.
a teacher,
Yeah.
somebody you look up to, how do we switch from being on the defensive to being on the offensive? You see, the defense can rarely ever win a championship.
The defense can rarely ever win. Interesting.
Right?
Like
Because
in
they're
any
not
sport.
supposed to score.
In any sport. It's
In
just-
any sport.
Huh.
If you ran defensively, somebody would beat you to the finish line.
Right.
If you ran not to get hurt.
Ran defensively. Oh, like they're running past you. Oh, no. Don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. You know?
Or
like, yeah,
or
I
if
see.
you let somebody run by you and you defensively said, okay, I'm gonna stick right with him.
And I'm going to pass him at the very
And
last
I'll
moment.
pass him at the last second. But you don't know how fast he's going to go. You don't know what he's going to do. So now you're on his plan. Now you're on his train, and he's taking you where he wants to go, not where you need to go, and what your plan was.
Right.
Where we see this probably best is a child-parent confrontation.
Child parent when it comes to playing defense versus offense.
Exactly.
Of doubt.
Every parent loves their child. I love my child, and you created them.
I didn't, but
The parent did.
yeah.
The parent created them, and they are the fruit of the root.
The parents are the
They came
children are
from
the fruit
you.
of the root, right? Got
Right?
it. That makes
And you
sense.
love them. And it requires gardening. And you need to prepare the environment in which they grow up in. And so teaching your children requires you to sow the seeds of discipline, anticipation, responsibility, and empowerment. My dad used to say, I dare you.
Yeah. Dare you
Discipline, anticipation, responsibility, empowerment. Now, that's another whole topic, and I don't want to get all into that, but every moment of interaction with a child is an opportunity of growth. And so it starts with simple things where they can begin to understand right away, and most parents don't do it anymore. They don't teach their child to say
they don't sow
please
the
and
sow
thank
the
you.
seeds, and
They're
they
not
don't,
sowing
right.
the seeds anymore.
Yeah, they just go to school and there you go, right? Yeah.
You just do what you do, and I don't want the confrontation. I don't want them going at me and rolling their eyes and going, "Oh, mom again."
You don't want to have to
Thank
deal
you.
with
I don't
want
want to have to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this.
Right.
And because we don't want to deal with it, we don't insist that every time you give them something, your opportunity ends at the length of my arm.
Your opportunity ends at the length. Oh, wow. Yeah.
If he doesn't do something to sow the crops, to seed the grain, to take care of it, to do the work, my opportunity ends there.
Right.
Because if he has no money, he can't do anything.
Right.
And so he was very careful to make sure that we understood that age and stage appropriateness of learning how to deal with things was how you were taught to do things for yourselves, how to discipline yourself, how to anticipate what you will need for yourself, how to know what responsibility is yours and what is mine, how to be empowered to be better than you think you can be. I don't want to go into all of that, but I want today to try and get you to think about this. When someone comes along and places a doubt, they don't know how you grow.
When someone comes along and places a doubt in my own life, or like the skier, the German skier or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, or the French ones that said it in German.
They don't know how you're growing. They don't know if you're strong enough.
Right. They don't know what you're going to do with it.
As a matter of fact, your parents rarely know the way you are because they go on the defensive and say nothing. They go on the defensive and say, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to try and make him or her happy. I'm just going to try and comply with their desires.
Give them what they want. Give them all the ice cream. None of the peas.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And the application of this starts as soon as they can do something for themselves. So when they can feed themselves, let them feed themselves. Now, they will put most of the food on the floor because
Right.
they stick it in the food kind of funny, and then they turn it over.
Right.
And it falls.
For me as a child, I would use the spoon, and then I would use my other hand to put the food on the spoon and then in my mouth, and I still wouldn't get it.
But the thing is that if you get hungry, you'll
Right.
come and eat.
You're gonna figure it out.
You're going to figure
Your
it
face
out.
is gonna be in the plate. If
The
it
only
has
thing
to be.
a parent will not like is the mess.
Right.
And they'll say, I don't want to have to clean up the mess, so I'm going to spoon feed them.
So it's quicker and it's more efficient. Yeah.
But next thing you know, you're doing the next thing for them. I've watched parents with kids, for example, in ski racing, and I've watched what the kids say, and then I watch what the parents say. And I suddenly have this statement that always comes to my mind, that what we say reveals more about the speaker than it does about the person and the perspective being spoken about.
So as a parent, when you say something, it reveals more about you
What you want.
than
Then
what you're trying to insinuate
communicate
or
to them.
Communicate. Yeah.
Because if what you say is on the defensive and protecting them and trying to keep them from not leading to a confrontation because you don't want that, you're actually feeding them the ability to say, I don't have to do anything about this. I'm not going to do anything about this. I'm going to say where it is. I want to tell you a story to end today. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know if we're close to the end, but I want to tell you a story. I prepared 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I prepared nine stories.
9 stories,
So
Jim. We don't have that much time.
So I could go to any one of these
Right.
9 stories.
Okay, roll dice.
I'm trying to think of which one to use because I could jump all over the place.
Well, that's what the jungle in the jungle Patreon is for all these other stories, I'm sure. So I'm sure we'll hear them at some point. But pick one of them. Pick a good one.
The one I had planned for today's podcast was the one that taught me how to respond the right way to doubt.
To doubt, right?
Learning how to do this for myself.
How to deal with it. How to succeed. When
How
the
to
thoughts
succeed.
show up.
As you know, our listeners may not have heard this podcast and know this, so I'll just have to be brief in explanation. I had a horrible accident when I was 10 years of age, and I smashed my head on a cement floor. My fault. I did it. It was my choice. It was all in a split second. Boom, smashed, went into a coma instantly. And I didn't wake up for a long, long time. And Dr. Green went to extensive methods to wake me up and finally found the solution. I woke up, and then it was 15 months of recovery. So in total, I was in the hospital as a kid at 10 years of age to 11 and a half years of age for 18 months.
It's crazy. Yeah.
And I got used to people coming in and seeing me after I woke up and after I was able to have visitors. And it took quite a while because at first I was just in a dark room with no noise. And then I could finally have a little bit of light, and I would still get headaches if I looked right at the light. And it's gradual.
Right. Recovery.
And so the damage that I did took so long that I got kind of out of shape and quite chubby just laying in bed all the time. People would bring me stuff when I finally could come, and I would eat more and more. And I got used to being spoiled. I got used to getting everything.
Right.
And all I had to do was push a buzzer. If I got a headache, I'd push a buzzer, and then somebody would come and say, can I help you? And I got a real headache. Okay, well, this is what you need to do. Or here, take this pill, or whatever it was that
Right.
they had to do.
I need some ice cream. That kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I need ice water.
Right.
And at first, that seems like, well, why didn't you just get up and get it yourself? But if I sat up, I would pass out, and I could fall out of bed and hit my head again. So they didn't want that happening.
So they gave you a buzzer.
So they gave me a buzzer. And finally, I got well enough to get out of bed and start to exercise. And it was very slow at first and very tedious work. And I had these 2 nurses that I still remember. And in the process, when I could start to finally read again, which was my favorite thing to do, my mother would bring me books from the library and bring books from home. And she brought a book, and in there was a book called Wake Up and Live. And I still have the book. It's behind me right on the shelf here. The book is called Wake Up and Live by Dorothea Brande and was written in 1931. And to this day, nobody knows where it came from.
The book?
Yeah, the books just showed up with all of the other books she brought. And my mother's description and decision was that it must have been between 2 other books, and it just ended up coming. But the funny thing was that there was no stamp on it. There was no library recognition on it. So it really didn't belong to anybody. So we didn't have anywhere to return it, so we just kept it.
Right. Oh, interesting. Oh, weird.
And I just started reading this book, Wake Up and Live, Wake Up and Live. And Dorothea Brand would say, a man who wants to go north, and he decides he's going to go north being a figure of speech of a destination that he wants to achieve, he would probably at first go to his family and say, I'm thinking of going here. In my case, I want to be an Olympic athlete. When I finally woke up and said, this is what I want to do.
I'll be a skier.
And they were going, skier, you're from Saskatchewan, you've never skied, you've never had a lesson, you don't own ski equipment.
Yeah.
I mean, forget it. And I went, yeah, but I went once to Big Mountain, we had equipment, we rented it, or we had it, we used it, and I want to do this. Not going to happen. We live here, we have a dairy farm. The closest mountains are 390 miles away in Banff. Not going to happen. And I'm going, it's going to happen. And I started thinking this way. I got to make it happen. And then I got friends that came in and they would put their hand on my shoulder and say, it's so sad you won't be able to play hockey anymore because with your head the way it is and you ever hit it again, it could be fatal.
Oh, it's so sad. So sad.
And I would go, man, is this the nicest thing you can say to a person in the hospital? Like, what are you thinking?
Right.
But that's the way people would talk. And Dorothea Brand says in her book, Wake Up and Live, you go to your family first, and your family would say, no, you don't have any qualifications to do that. And then you go to your friends, and your friends would say, no, that isn't going to happen because look at you. Look at what your experience is. Look at what happened to you. And you still want to do it. And so you go to your colleagues, people that you know in the industry, and you say, this is what I want to do. What do I have to do? How do I do this? And they would say, well, what is your experience? I have none. Where's your equipment? I don't have any. I don't think you're going to do it.
Right. Doubt.
Like just placing doubt after doubt after doubt. And of course, once I got well enough, on alternating days, I would have to go with this nasty nurse. I call her nasty. She was a beautiful nurse as far as a nurse goes. but she always smelled like beer and cigarettes.
Right.
And she would come to do my workout, and she would have this sheet and this clipboard, and we would go, and she would show me how to do the exercises. And once she showed me how to do the exercise, she would say, okay, here's the exercises. This is the number of reps you got to do. Put the weight down here and put how many reps you did, and I'll be back. And she would leave, and I would do it. And she would come back smelling more like a cigarette or more like a beer. And I wondered how she could keep her job, but I was a kid. I wasn't thinking about that,
12.
But I was just going,
It's odd.
this is odd. And then there was the nice nurse. And the nice nurse would read the book to me. She would ask me questions. Do you understand it? And then when it was time to exercise, she would come and she would stay with me with the clipboard, and she would look at my numbers and she would go, wow, you went up here since yesterday.
You're improving.
Look at you.
Getting better.
And she would always mark where I improved in blue and the ones I didn't improve on in red. And she would hold it up at the end, and there might have been 12 exercises there or 15 exercises, and she would say, you only got one red today. Look at the improvement you made. And this was my first introduction to weightlifting and exercise. And I suddenly got thinking, this is the kind of friends I want. This is the kind of family I want. These are the kind of colleagues I want.
People you want.
I want people around me that are going to go, you can do it. Get going. Make it happen. And the more I got excited, the more I started thinking, this is how you deal with doubt. But I still didn't have it because some days I'd go, oh, I don't feel like it. And I'd push the button. I need some ice water. I need some ice cream. I need something to eat.
Right.
And one day the nice nurse came in after I'd rung the button for 3 hours and nobody had come. And I was downright angry.
Yeah, you'd be
like
upset.
I'm just furious.
Jim wants his ice cream.
And she sits down on the bed and she looks at me and she says, you can do it yourself. And what you can do for yourself will help you with your fitness. It'll help you. Didn't you tell me that what you really want to do is get out of here? And I'd say, yes. She said, the sooner you can show us that you can take care of yourself, the sooner you can get out of here. And right there, Cole, the switch flipped on doubt, on fear, on everything that was in the caboose that was making me do what the feelings wanted me to do. And I just said, not anymore. I am doing what I can do no matter what anybody does.
Right.
Long story short, Long story short, from that moment till I started skiing was less than a year. Even though we lived in Saskatchewan and we stayed living in Saskatchewan, I started ski racing here in Calgary because my mom and I were moved here because I persuaded my dad and my mom to move me here and give me a chance to do this. Mm-hmm. And as you know, 6 years, 10 months later, I win a bronze medal.
That's crazy.
All because I flipped the switch. Now, I have 8 other stories I can tell you, but
not today.
You'll have to listen to the extended material.
Oh.
You'll have to become a Patreon.
Oh, that's right.
And you will get more of those stories and more of what I did and what you can do and how you can put doubt and all its friends, all of them that show up that have no arms, no hands, they just beat you up because you feed it. Stop feeding them and put them in the caboose and let them come along for the ride because they're going to show up anyway. And you can't get rid of them permanently.
Got to be prepared for where they're going to go.
And I want to thank you for spending this time with me in the jungle, talking about doubt and how you can decide what you will do so that you're not between things. You're a first responder that saves a life, that builds a life, that makes a life come alive and says, I can do that. Thanks for listening.
Okay, off to the extended material. Let's go.